All right, we are back. What are we on? Day 15, and this is end of week 3 actually of this stream, and yeah, things are going good. Really enjoying how this channel is growing. Really good session yesterday. Managed to help Tallulah channel with her work, and today we are gonna talk about something that really I first discovered in I think it was Neil Gaiman's masterclass, talking about when you come into plot difficulties with the plot, with your what's happening, what's supposed to happen next. The answers are often, or really always, a little bit further back. Okay, so if you want to go forward, you've got to sort of look back at what you've written. So we haven't done a read through of where we've of this whole story. I haven't done a read through of the whole of chapter 1 yet, or at least not for about a week. So I'm going to start by doing that, and I'm going to go in with the premise of whatever has been written is fact, right? Is an absolute fact. We talked about this before, that if you are you come up with an idea for a story, and then the next day you think, oh, that's terrible, what's a better idea? And that's not the best way to do it. That's a very, very uncreative way of trying to improve yourself as a writer, right? You're not going to get anywhere with that. You're just going to end up with a bunch of mediocre ideas, okay? Because each one is just going to be mediocre. Maybe you'll hit a really good one, after 100 different ideas come to you. Maybe. A better question to ask is not what is a better idea, but rather, how can I make this idea very, very cool, very interesting, a bestseller, a blockbuster? Because if you do that, then you really do open up those creative channels. So creativity within bounds, right, is usually what will spur you to make those great connections, and just think a little bit outside the box, right? But you need a box to begin with. I don't know if that's an expression or if that's a saying, but I think it's basically true, right? You can't think outside the box if you don't have a box to begin with. So, right, so that's how I'm going to read this first chapter. We're going to say that whatever is in this first chapter is absolute fact, and we can't change it. Okay, the first chapter is now impossible to change. I mean, we can edit a line here or there. That's, if the grammar isn't right or we've skipped out a bit of information. But whatever is in this chapter is going to stay in this chapter, right? And from that first chapter, we're then going to take the elements, those little pieces of information, and we're going to treat them as fact, and then that's our box, okay? And then from that box, we are going to develop the story in chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4. So that's what I'm going to do. And so, without further ado, I hope this is big enough for you guys. Let's make it a little bit bigger so you can read along with me. Okay. Chapter 1. I'm going to tell you a story which you'll believe, and then I'll tell you the truth, which you won't. It goes like this. 3 days after I arrived in Japan, I came back to my hotel and the concierge told me that a package had been left for me. She was wrong. I wasn't expecting a package. I didn't know anyone in Japan, nor had I told anyone that I was coming here. So who could be sending me a package? But she held it out to me all the same. It was a standard brown envelope about A4 in size with no obvious markings, not even my name. I asked who'd left it, but the concierge told me that it was a colleague who had accepted the package, and so she didn't know. Needless to say, I shouldn't have taken it, but I've never been one to make good decisions. The package felt heavier than it looked, and I heard a metallic sound inside. I'd once watched a documentary about those postal bombs back in the 1980s. They'd been filled with all sorts of scrap metal as shrapnel and probably made the same noise just before they'd gone off. Not that I'm one of those paranoid nutcases, but I do have an ex-wife. No, said a voice in my head, Sabrina wouldn't kill me via unmarked postal bomb. She'd use FedEx. Is everything all right, sir? Asked the concierge. I don't suppose you'd open this for me. Sir? No, I didn't think she would, nor did I get the chance to convince her because another guest, some big fat American woman, barged me out of the way in order to check herself in. My God, I thought, she could have killed us all. I took the package back to my room on the second floor, sat at the desk, and after a few minutes of silent contemplation, I opened the package and looked inside. The metallic sound had been made by one of those puzzle boxes, the kind where you have to slide around the secret panels in order to unlock the contents. There was also a slip of paper inside. Its message had been written in cursive hand and read as follows. I know why you're here, Mr. Sharp. I know what you're looking for. Be at the Green Bird restaurant at 7 p.m. P.S. Bring the puzzle box. I rushed to the window and looked down at the street. I saw pedestrians, all sorts, going about their business, but nothing stood out as odd. Nobody looking up at my window. Nobody in the adjacent building looking across into my room. I went to the door, checked the hallway. Nothing there either. Turning back to my room, nothing seemed out of place. I'd left the do not disturb sign on the door, and I knew the maid hadn't been in because the bed was still unmade from the morning. I checked the closet. Nothing appeared out of place. My single duffel bag still had everything that it should have. Nothing was missing. I rang down to reception to see if anyone had called the room today, but nobody had. I paced back and forth, staring at the open package. Who was this person? How did they know who I was? And more importantly, how did they know why I was here? And who the hell sends a puzzle box anyway? Not Sabrina, that was for sure. She hated puzzles. And besides, she'd have written the message in blood. The alarm clock showed just after 6:15 in the evening. I knew there was a flight back to London at 7:10. If I hurried, I could make the airport in time. No, I'd spent too long getting to this point. If I missed this opportunity now, I'd never get it back again. But I couldn't take any chances. I called down to the concierge and had them order me a taxi to the Green Bird restaurant. Then I grabbed the puzzle box and headed out. In the back of the taxi, I examined the puzzle box. It was made of black wood, hard and smooth to the touch. The design was an elaborate, geometric mosaic and made my eyes hurt if I stared at it too long. I prodded the sides to try to find the secret panels, but I was too flustered to have any patience. How the hell had someone found me? Damn, I cursed, and the taxi driver shot me a look in the rearview mirror. I gave him a dirty look back. Problem? I said. Traffic's bad, he said meekly. And he gives a reason. I told him to step on it. We moved through the east side streets of Shinjuku, going deep into Kabukicho, the red light district. Lots of gambling, prostitution, and lowlives this side of town, the kind of people I deal with a little too much for my liking. Then again, that's how I'd met Sabrina. I turned my attention back to figuring out who was messing with me. It didn't make any sense. Nobody could have known I was coming to Japan. I'd planned everything meticulously, right down to the new alias I'd made. The taxi pulled up about 30 minutes after we'd left the hotel. The driver told me the Green Bird was about halfway down the bustling street to our left. I couldn't miss it. But I walked straight past the place without giving it a second glance. I wasn't about to just walk into some random restaurant without checking out the place first. I had no idea who or what I was dealing with, and if things went to hell, like they often did, I needed to know I could get out quickly. There was an alleyway beside the restaurant. It had a fire escape going to the roof, and a couple of dumpsters that I could smell all the way from the street. There was a homeless guy slumped against one of the dumpsters with a needle sticking out of his arm. Nobody seemed to care. I checked my watch. It was 5 to 7, 5 minutes before I'd been told to be here. Obviously, I was walking into a trap, but I'd come too far now. 3 years of searching, I couldn't back off now. So I took a breath and walked into the Green Bird, straight into a trap. The place was empty except for one table in the middle of the room. The woman sitting at it looked up at me as I entered. She was young and good-looking, with those long black lashes and sticky red lips. I should have run straight out of there. But two bruisers in cheap black suits stepped up behind me and blocked the entrance. The woman checked her watch and smiled her red lips. She motioned to the seat opposite her, and it really wasn't a question. Tupper Hunter, thanks for joining. I'm glad you're enjoying the read. Let's keep going. We're going to get to the end of chapter 1 as a read through. The woman checked her watch and smiled her red lips. She motioned to the seat opposite her, and it really wasn't a question. I glanced at the fire door in the far right of the room. I might not have been as big as the bruises behind me, but I was sure as hell faster. I thought about the homeless guy slumped against the dumpster. No doubt these two would trip over him if they tried to chase me. But I wanted answers, so I joined the woman at a table. "There's a story we tell children," she said, speaking in Japanese like she knew I could understand her, "about a troublesome tanuki who plagued an honest farmer for days on end. One day the farmer laid a trap and caught the tanuki. 'Do not untie it,' he told his wife, 'before I come back from the market tonight.' But the farmer's wife was a kindly woman, and the tanuki's hopeless crying soon got to her. She took pity on the little creature, but no sooner did she untie it, did the tanuki kill her, chop her into pieces, and make a soup out of her. The tanuki then shape-shifted into the form of the farmer's wife, and when the farmer came home, the tanuki fed him the soup. The woman snapped her fingers, and from the kitchen came a waiter who put 2 bowls of steaming soup in front of us. The woman smiled at me. 'Go ahead,' she said. I glanced at the fire door again. 'That's a children's story?' I said, but my feet were dancing under the table. The woman ate a spoon of soup and licked her red lips. 'My name is Kyori Matsumoto, Yakuza Captain 18, head of the clan Matsumoto, and she who lays claim to the 4th Ward, Shinjuku, of the great city, Tokyo.' 'Oliver Sharp,' I said, spooning my own soup. 'Troublesome tanuki.' I couldn't tell whether that quip got to her because she had about the best poker face I'd ever seen. A flawless complexion like a perfect porcelain doll. She sat tall and upright, all her movements precise, as if choreographed well in advance. I couldn't help watching her red lips glide over her soup spoon. 'The puzzle box,' she said eventually. I took it out of my pocket and put it on the table, but I said nothing. I wanted her to do all the talking. 'The first puzzle boxes were made long ago in Hakone,' said Kyori Matsumoto. 'A safeguard for personal jewelry and keeping children's fingers from sewing needles. But as their complexity grew, the samurai and ancient warlords began using them to pass their secret messages. I received a similar puzzle box upon my ascendancy to Yakuza Captain.' 'Yeah, I didn't realize the Japanese mob was so liberal,' I said. Kyori Matsumoto fixed me with a look. It was a dangerous game to play, but I'd be damned if I let some woman keep the upper hand. I'd already come here, run here like a dog, but I could be a Rottweiler when I wanted to. 'It took me 5 weeks to solve that box,' she said, and in the corner of my eye, I saw one of her bodyguards pull out a gun. 'You, Mr. Sharp, will have until I finish my soup.' I snorted. 'Nice try, love,' I thought, but I wasn't about to play her game, and nor did I have to. Her bodyguard wasn't going to shoot me while I was sitting so close to her, so I picked up my spoon and slurped my soup. The bodyguard snarled at me to show some respect, but the 18th captain of the Yakuza refused to be ruffled. I still had a clear path to the fire door, so I decided to test that cool exterior with a bit of shock treatment. I waited until she was down to a last spoonful, and then snapped up my own spoon and smashed it down on the puzzle box, shattering the damn thing and busting open its contents. 'Solved,' I said. Kyori Matsumoto didn't flinch. In fact, I got the impression that it'd take a bomb going off before she might yawn. She glanced at the broken puzzle box, dabbed her lips with a napkin, and turned to her bodyguard. 'Tell them to serve the fish.' The waiter served the next course, which I recognized instantly as fugu, or pufferfish. A single drop of fugu poison can kill an adult. Chefs have to undergo special training to learn how to prepare it. Apparently, that makes it a delicacy. Not that I'd ever tried it, seeing as how a single plate runs upwards of $250. Kyori Matsumoto slipped the first sliver between her glistening red lips, while I turned my attention to the puzzle box I'd smashed. Among the debris lay a fluffy, white rabbit's foot. The farmer had a neighbor, said Kyori Matsumoto, picking up her parable. A crafty rabbit who swore to avenge the wife's death. He befriended the tanuki and invited him one day to harvest grass for the winter. On the way back home, the rabbit set the tanuki's bundle of grass on fire, and when the tanuki asked what the crackling sound was, the rabbit said they were walking on the crackling mountain. When the flames burned the tanuki's back and he was in terrible pain, the crafty rabbit helpfully applied a lotion made of chili powder. The next week, the rabbit invited the wounded tanuki to go fishing. He built a wooden boat for himself and a clay boat for the tanuki. Naturally, it wasn't long before the clay boat began to sink into the lake, and when the tanuki called out to his friend for help, the rabbit only laughed and said, "Now the farmer's wife is avenged." The rabbit then hit the tanuki with his oar, and both the tanuki and the clay boat sank into the lake forever. The farmer was so grateful that he invited the rabbit to live with him, and they became firm friends. My God, I thought. I'd wanted her to do all the talking, but if this Yakuza captain kept speaking in parables, I mean, at least Sabrina would just call me a bastard and be done with it. Tell me why I'm here, I said plainly. Kyori Matsumoto finished her fugu and placed her cutlery neatly on her empty plate. I have enough tanukis on my farm, Mr. Sharp, she said. What I need is a rabbit. And how about what I need, I said. I never knew a farmer who could grow that. She gave a signal to the kitchen, and the waiter came and removed our plates, replacing them with a black basket of what I thought were plums. These are my favourite, said Kyori, fingering the plump fruit. Father took me to Ishikawa to harvest the first vintage, and I've never missed one since. I still remember how his eyes lit up when he talked about the incredible new fruit that he'd helped to produce. The fruits of our labour are sweetened by the sweat of our brow, he used to say. And the ruby Roman grapes are sweet indeed. Each grape weighs over 20 grams and is at least 18% sugar. And that's only the regular class. The premium class, such as these, require each grape to be over 30 grams. Grapes, I said, astonished. Kyori Matsumoto plucked one from the heavy bunch, holding it on a flat palm as she examined its perfection. I stared silently as her red lips softly caressed the hard round ball a split second before her teeth pierced its flesh. A trickle of juice ran down her chin and she smiled at me as she swallowed. So you see, Mr. Sharp, the soil is rich in Shinjuku. Yeah, I thought, glancing back at the bodyguard who pulled the gun on me, but what's in the compost? How did you know I was in Japan? I asked. I know everything that goes on in my ward. How do you know what I'm looking for? And then we need the comment that convinces Sharp he'll get paid. Okay. I clenched my jaw. I couldn't believe how poorly I could read her face. Surely she couldn't have known what I was looking for. She hadn't even named it explicitly. Then again, I don't suppose you would if you knew what it was. Either way, I should have run straight out of there. But like I said, I've never been one to make good decisions. Okay, I said. Wonderful, she said, and so the 18th captain of the Yakuza served me tea and grapes and told me all about her twin sister, the 7th captain of the Yakuza, whom she wanted me to kill. Mizuki was always a mischievous child, said Kyori. Mizuki the Tanuki, my father used to call her. Do you know she once broke into Principal Tanaka's office in order to change her end-of-year's grades? She would have gotten away with it too had she not also been compelled to... And we need something there, which actually I know what it is now. I thought about this yesterday. One second. Yeah, this is it. Remember, we want this sister to be crazy, so this is what it is. Compelled to take some very indecent pictures of herself and upload them to his work computer before leaving. Something like that, right? This girl was just a nutter in school. Okay, she would have gotten away with it too had she not also been compelled to take some very indecent pictures of herself and upload them to his work computer before leaving. Pretty clever, maybe not pretty clever, but pretty sinister. Let's go with that. Pretty or insidious. Pretty insidious, I said, sensing a kindred spirit in this sister. Pretty nothing, snapped Kyori Matsumoto. It brought disgrace to our family and dishonor to our name. It was the first time I'd seen any emotion from her. I glanced at her bodyguards who looked equally stunned. But yes, she said, reeling herself in like a viper. Like you, my father brushed it off as unchanneled potential. But I don't suppose you can understand how that made me feel, do you, Mr. Sharp? No. I'm always everyone's favorite, I said. But how do a couple of 20-somethings become Yakuza captains anyway? My story is simple, she said, sipping her tea. My father died tragically, and I ascended to captain in his place. I could have been wrong, but I was pretty sure I saw a smile behind that teacup. Naturally, this never sat well with Mizuki. Spoiled child that she is, she believed father would bequeath her the great honor of captaincy. But only I am the firstborn, and only I have earned the right. How did Mizuki come to power? It's Principal Tanaka all over again, said Kyori. 10 months ago, Mizuki ascended to captain of the Koto Ward, and it has been a nightmare ever since. She who controls Koto controls the docks, and already the Yakuza has suffered many setbacks due to her lack of sense. Once again, she brings dishonor to my father's legacy, and disgrace to our name. My superiors will not stand for war between the captains, but something must be done. There is a captain's meeting in 2 weeks. Mizuki must be dealt with before then. And then we have this last line again. We're not really quite sure what this last line is yet, but this will end chapter 1 on an ominous note. Okay, so that's chapter 1. And like I said, we are now going to take everything that's in there as fact. Okay, we cannot go back and change any major elements. The rabbit's foot is what was inside the puzzle box. There's no changing that. There is, Mizuki and the twin sister. That's our plot, right? Those two sisters are going to war. This is set in Japan. Not all of these things are now set in stone. And the reason that we're saying that is because it's much better as a writer to say, how can I improve this idea? How can I make this idea really cool? Rather than saying, what's a better idea? So, is chapter 1 perfect? Absolutely not. Is it the best story in the world? Probably not at the moment. How do we make it the best story in the world? Now we're talking. Now we are talking. That's how we make better and better stories. That's how we get the creative juices flowing. Okay, so let's go through what we wrote yesterday, this beginning of chapter 2, and let's do the edit of that, because obviously that was just the first draft, and we need to, sort of brush this up and see really if this is holding up to what's come before. Okay, so let me bring up, is that big enough on the screen? I think it probably is. Okay, so 2 days after my meeting with Kyori Matsumoto, I arrived at the port of Tokyo for my first day of work. Koto might have only been 30 minutes east of Shinjuku, but Kyori Matsumoto had no jurisdiction here. If I got caught, I was on my own. So, this first sentence. So, one of the principles that we've been using to write the novel is that every page, at the beginning of every chapter needs to draw in an audience as if they've not read anything that's come before it. Obviously, that's what happens in chapter 1 or a prologue. There is nothing before it. So your first sentence has to be able to appeal to any reader picking up the book, right? There can't be any previous knowledge required. And that's, in my opinion, the same for every line of every first line of every chapter. Because if you think about it, most people, they read a chapter at a time. You know, maybe they read one chapter on the way to work, so they're putting the book down, and then they want to pick it up and get back into it. They just want almost a complete refresher in one sentence. You know, like they do at the end of, like at the beginning of a TV show. They do a quick recap of what happened, you know, last time on NCIS, and you know they just tell you what the story is. So too we need to do that here. So immediately there's a problem with this then. Okay, 2 days after my meeting with Kyorei Matsumoto. Well, if you've never read the book, you don't really know who Kyorei Matsumoto is, and it's never actually stated in this first line. So it's not really that compelling a first line. Okay, but if we just say 2 days after my meeting with the 18th captain of the Yakuza. Okay, now immediately if you're picking up the book, you know, raw, if you just happen to start at chapter 2 for some reason, if chapter 1 was lost to time, then at least already you kind of understand something. So 2 days after my meeting with the 18th captain of the Yakuza, we know our protagonist has met with a very high up official in the Japanese mob. Obviously this is set in Japan. So just from that small one little change of changing from a person's name to their title, we've given the reader a much better recap of the events so far, and we draw them back into the story very quickly. Okay. Now, I don't like this word arrived. I think it's better if we say I reported. The reason I don't like the word arrived is because that's basically what we had at the very beginning, right? 3 days after I arrived in Japan, right? So I don't really want to keep using the same words, the same vernacular. It's not right. So 2 days after my meeting with the 18th captain of the Yakuza, I reported to, you know, let's make this sound more official, Section 9 of the Port of Tokyo for my first day of work. Okay. But while Koto might have only been 30 minutes east of Shinjuku, Kyorei Matsumoto had no jurisdiction here. If I got caught, I was on my own. Okay, so again, if you're a reader who's not read anything before, the question you're asking is, okay, why is he working at the port? Why is that why might he be caught? What's he doing? All right. Now, if you've read the previous chapter, you understand. Okay, we understand that he's beginning to infiltrate the enemy's organization. That's why he's at the ports. That's why he's in Koto. That's why he's in a different district. He's in the Twin Sisters district. But either way, you want to go on. You're not completely lost. If you're coming into it raw, you're fine. Okay. So we do 100 million tons a year. Said the port manager. Whoa, let's not do that. Said the port manager proudly as we walk through the towering stacks of multicolored shipping containers. How much is the contraband? So let's just describe this guy just a little bit. He's probably not going to be a very important character, so we'll just give him a very sort of not vague, but just simple description. He was a squat guy. Let's make him about 50. No, a squat guy of about 50 years old. About 50 years old. I don't know if that needs to be hyphenated, but whatever. With hefty forearms. You know, these are dock workers. They are, they're, squat guys, thick guys. And that's going to be, useful later on if our guy gets into trouble, right? And he's being chased through the shipping yard by, 100 beefy guys, right? That's probably going to be useful. We want the bad guys to be, to be fairly powerful. And tattoos for sleeves, right? How much is contraband? How much of it, I think, is probably gonna... How much of it is contraband, I asked. He gave me a bit of a look. Must be at least 2%, I said. That's the situation in London, anyway. Questions like that can get you in a lot of trouble around here, Sharp, he said. but without much conviction in his voice. Despite being a criminal organization, the Yakuza runs many legitimate businesses throughout Japan, albeit to hide their off-book dealings. Right, so this is, we're sort of bringing in a bit of the research, but it doesn't read quite right. Okay, you guys can hear that, I'm sure. It just needs a little bit of a tune-up there. So what can we do for this? Let's see. 1 second, just make sure this is all running smooth. Okay. Right, so we need to... Yeah, okay, so let's get rid of that. And let's just compress this. Again, dialogue is one of those things where we all struggle. My problem with dialogue, the problem that I always find when I go back and edit, and what editors have always told me, whether it be from my first book or the second book, the third book, the thing that keeps coming up is your dialogue goes on for too many lines. It's just compress it, right? So how much of it is contraband? I asked him. Right, let's just say back in London. Right, our guy is from London. That would be obvious from his accent. And we already stated that in the first chapter. We estimated 2%. That's what we said, right? 2%. Okay, something like that. Okay, and there we go. We just sort of sharpen that up. So then the port manager, you know, jabbed an angry finger at me. Questions like that can get you in a lot of trouble. Sharp, you don't need to say around here. A lot of trouble, sharp. Let's go like that. Okay. I had... Yeah, I don't like the conviction thing. I think it's more like I had no idea, you know, who he was trying to fool. Everyone knew the Japanese mob. Okay, there it is. Did everybody catch that? We've spoken about this hundreds of times. I was about to write, everybody knew the Japanese mob were moving, you know, contraband through the docks, right? And I've said this, I don't know how many times now, but you've got to ingrain it into your head that every author, any editor worth their salt is going to say, get rid of as many of those to be verbs as you can. Am, are, was, were. Get rid of them. They're so unnecessary and they slow everything down. Okay, so it's not everyone knew the Japanese mob were moving contraband through the docks. It's everybody, you know, everyone knew the Japanese mob moved. That's what you want to say, right? Don't use two words when one will do. Okay, everyone knew the Japanese mob moved contraband through the docks. Okay, yeah, you don't really need all this stuff, right? But let's just emphasize the point here, innit? And at 100 million tons of cargo, we were, see that again? But let's write what we want and then we can change it. We were surrounded by, so 2%, you know, 2 million tons of it. Surrounded by at least 2 million tons of it. So in 100 million tons of cargo, we were surrounded by at least 2 million tons of it. Actually, that doesn't read so bad, but that to be verb is probably going to be axed by an editor for something else. Whatever, let the editor do their job, I guess. Okay, 2 million tons of it. Okay, then I guess it's, yeah, I don't like, that was a joke that we put in and it's not very good. Just going to delete that immediately. Okay, so he laughed at that, not because it wasn't true, untrue, so we're deleting that joke, so therefore, right? Okay, half the guys at the port were ex-convicts and proudly displaying their tattoos of allegiance. I saw it, right, so he's describing the docks. So we need to describe, I was thinking about this also yesterday. I haven't done the research, but we're in a shipping yard. I don't know about you guys, but I really have no idea what goes on a shipping yard. I don't know the ins and outs. the only thing that I liked about the shipping yard idea, there are two things actually. One is that it provides a great backdrop for potential action. My Mac is about to turn off, so let me plug it in. Yeah, so it provides a really interesting backdrop for action. I can immediately see, the chase scene that we know has to happen. Our guy's sharp. He finally gets caught snooping around on the shipping yard, looking in these containers where he shouldn't be looking in order to help take down Mizuki Matsumoto, right? And we can imagine him running through the shipping yard. These big towering stacks, multicolored shipping containers on either side. It's like a maze. Maybe he's on top of the shipping containers. He's jumping from one to the other. He's got these big squat, port authority guys, chasing him. They've got guns that's part of the Yakuza. They're all coming around. And then suddenly, it looks really bleak. They're chasing him into a corner. They know the layout better than him. And he barricades himself inside one of the shipping containers, which really should be a terrible idea because, a shipping container, you're locking yourself in an enclosed space. And he's going to have all the guys outside, semicircled around the entrance to this shipping container. They're pointing their guns at him. They're about to move in. And, he's in this dark shipping container all alone, panicked. This is the end, it seems. And then he turns around and he just sees stacks and stacks of contraband, right? He sees guns. He sees weapons. He sees grenades, a grenade launcher, a rocket launcher, right? And then we get that very Expendables, Rambo, James Bond scene, the guys are closing in on the shipping container, about to come in through the door and kill him. He kicks open the doors, and boom, he's got this machine gun, and boom, 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 blasts them all away. Just destroys them. That was just going to be a really fun moment, potentially, that could happen, by using this. The other thing that I liked about the shipping yard, and I'm sure that this is probably where the idea came from, subliminally, is think about a shipping container, right? It's basically just an oblong box, right? It's metal and it's an oblong box. Does that sound familiar? An oblong box? Let's just go back up here. And what were we talking about here? What did our guy receive in the package? He received a puzzle box, right? So this, here it is, right? Examine the puzzle box, right? So these shipping containers, I'm wondering if there's something we can do with those two things. We have the puzzle box, the mysterious puzzle box, the magical ancient puzzle box, which the samurai and ancient warlords used to use. And now we have almost the modern day huge version of these things, which is, shipping containers. So I'm wondering if there's something maybe we can do there. And if this does turn into a fantasy kind of a novel, if we just add some mystical, magical elements, maybe we can use all of that information. These are the joys of, writing a story from scratch with no idea of a plot. You just sort of make it up as you go along. So, okay, that's it. So I want to give more description here of what it's like on a shipping dock. I have to really do the research before I can, but let's just build some suspense into this by doing something like this. The port manager, right? So I'm assuming that all these different types of shipping containers, they're color coded, and depending on the color, that tells these guys, what kind of cargo is inside. There must be some kind of system like that, because otherwise, how do they organize everything? So I'm going to put that. Show me how to, identify. And this is another thing that, people love to read. I certainly do. I like learning new things, information. So, lines like this are just, really on the money. Of course, they have to be correct. They need to be factually correct, which I don't know if this is, but that's something I can find out. The different types of cargo by the, let's just say it is by the color. One second, color. Okay. By the color of the seal, let's say they placed around the doors of each shipping container. Okay, and then we'll just give a sort of a guide. A red seal, you know, corresponded to let's say food, so like perishables. Blue meant like blue chip, computer chips, electronics. Yellow was, you know, like medical supplies, something like that. Whatever. It's not really the point. We can do the research afterwards. Okay, now keep in mind, this is a Yakuza-run operation, so there's going to be some shipping containers, you know, at least 2% of these shipping containers are contraband. So perhaps those contraband, they're like, they put them in, you know, black seals around those shipping containers, so they can say, oh, this is one of ours, you know, take this to, you know, section 6, and, you know, they put all the contraband in section 6. So maybe our guy says, you know, remember our guy Oliver Sharp, he is sharp, he's an intelligent guy, he notices things. So, you know, what about the black seals, right? And then obviously the port manager, you know, he's like, never mind the black seals. Never mind the black seals, he said. Blue, yellow, and red. That's all you need to worry about. You know, he's that very sort of strict leader, port authority guy. He's not going to take any nonsense from his workers. You know, never mind the black seals, he said. Blue, yellow, and red. That's all you need to know about. He's that guy. And we all know that kind of boss, don't we? And maybe, okay, so maybe actually what happens is, okay, and again, I've got to be careful with humor. My mind always goes to humor, but remember, humor is the, it doesn't always work with, it doesn't work with suspense in general and thrillers, because, you know, suspense is the build-up of tension, whereas humor is the release of tension. So, got to be careful with this line, but, you know, I think it's like, you know, that's all you need to worry about, and then there's like this huge noise, you know, the ground shakes, and it's like, you know, clearly that's not the only thing I need to worry about. There's obviously something more to worry about. Okay, so let's use that. The ground shook as a violent noise. Violent noise, or maybe it's a bang, a bit more precise. Pounded through the shipping yard. And if it's a noise, it's going to echo off these shipping containers, right? So echoing off. Gosh, yeah, I can imagine like the if an alarm goes off on a shipping port, it must be hell on the ears. It must be absolutely hell. Maybe we can use that. Maybe someone does that, pulls an alarm later on. Shipping containers, and you know, bombarding us from all sides. Okay. And let's use that. Maybe it's coming from, you know, section 6. Okay, muttered the... So what I'm doing here is, I think we said yesterday, yeah, we had this big noise, and, you know, our guy's like, what's going on over there? And then this port authority manager says, you know, section 6 is off limits. Don't worry about section 6. All right, section 6 is where the contraband goes, obviously. But our guy, the port authority manager, obviously doesn't trust new recruit Sharp. He's like, you know, you don't go to section 6. Keep your nose clean. Stay out of this. So let me just delete some of this stuff which was already used before. This might be useful. So let me just go. So, okay, so what about the black seals? Never mind the black seals, he said. Blue, yellow, and red. That's all you need to worry about. And then there's this, big bang. The ground shook as a violent bang pounded through the shipping yard, echoing off the shipping containers and bombarding us from all sides. Right, and then we can imagine this port authority man, he's reacting to this section bloody 6. Yeah, let's do that. Muttered the port manager. Section bloody 6. What is this? What's wrong with this? Okay, muttered, yeah. It's all right. Okay. Section bloody 6, and our guy Sharp, quick-witted as ever. Oh, what's in section bloody 6? I like that. Yeah, okay. What's in section bloody 6? And then we can say, following his gaze to the, what did we say, the southeast, was it? The southeast port of the dock. To the southeast part of the port? Or side of the port? Part of the yard. Yeah, part of the shipping yard. That's what we want. Okay. Yeah, so we don't need this because we included that at the beginning. Okay, so what's in section? Okay, again, read it through. 1 second. So, the port manager showed me how to identify the different types of cargo by the color of the seal they placed around the doors of each shipping container. A red seal corresponded to perishables, blue meant electronics, yellow was medical supplies. What about the black seals? Never mind the black seals, he said. Blue, yellow, and red. That's all you need to worry about. The ground shook as a violent bang pounded through the shipping yard, echoing off the shipping containers and bombarding us from all sides. Section 6, muttered the port manager. Section bloody 6. What's in section bloody 6? I asked, following his gaze to the southeast part of the shipping yard. Never mind what's in this guy. Okay, so it's a little bit funny, this sort of scene. He's a bit of a... He's one of those sort of stock characters who's just angry, it seems. Never mind what's in section... Never mind what's in section 6. He snapped. Remember, our guy Sharp, he's not a people person. He is he's crude, he's brash, and he rubs people up the wrong way, and he has problems with women. So we're gonna run with that, right? So section and the real thing though, the real thing here that we're doing is we're just saying section 6 is this mysterious place. Just like we did in chapter 1, we just said we introduced the package, this mysterious package, and and the question was what's in the package, right? That's how we were building suspense. So too here in chapter 2, the beginning of chapter 2, we're just going to make section 6, the mystery. We want to know what's in section 6 of the shipping yard, what's in these containers, these shipping containers with the black seals. And how does this all relate to the Yakuza war that's coming along? So that's basically where I see this going. Section 6 is off limits. Okay. You understand, right? So you understand, and then we're okay. And then we just need all we need here is that last line which compels the reader to turn the page, right? We're writing 1 page a day, and here we are with the last line, and we need it to be something that makes the reader turn the page. So it's got to be, obviously, we've just said section 6 is off limits, so we are going to, in the next scene, go and have a look in what's section 6, right? We've asked the question, now we need to answer it. And when we answer it, we're also going to ask another question, and so on and so on. And that's how we build a page turner. So never mind what's in section 6 now. Section 6 is off limits, you understand? And then staying true to character, you know, I nodded because, you know, it was true. You know, I understood section 6 was where, not because I understood section 6 was my first stop. No, not my first stop. It doesn't sound right. It needs to be something like was where I needed to go. Okay, so that's it. Okay, and now any reader hopefully will be like, oh, he's going to section 6. He's just been told not to go to section 6. So, you know, now we're going to section 6, and we have, and that's basically it, right? That's our whole, we don't need this bit now. Okay, and then, okay, so this is as far as we've got with the novel so far. So, I think this reads better. Let's just read it through. Imagining again, even though it's chapter 2, imagining that nobody has read anything about in chapter 1, and they're just coming into this, you know, story fresh. It has to make sense, and it has to pull the reader in. Okay, so let's see if we have accomplished that task. Chapter 2. 2 days after my meeting with the 18th captain of the Yakuza, I reported to Section 9 of the port of Tokyo for my first day of work. But while Koto might have only been 30 minutes east of Shinjuku, Kyori Matsumoto had no jurisdiction here. If I got caught, I was on my own. This sentence might not make sense to someone just joining the story. But okay. We do 100 million tons a year, said the port manager proudly, as we walked through the towering stacks of multicolored shipping containers. He was a squat guy of about 50 years old with hefty forearms and tattoos for sleeves. How much of it is contraband, I asked. Back in London, we estimated 2%. The port manager jabbed an angry finger at me. Questions like that can get you in a lot of trouble, Sharp. I had no idea who he was trying to fool. Everyone knew the Japanese mob moved contraband through the docks, and at 100 million tons of cargo, we were surrounded by at least 2 million tons of it. The port manager showed me how to identify the different types of cargo by the color of the seal they placed around the doors of each shipping container. A red seal corresponded to perishables, blue meant electronics, yellow was medical supplies. What about the black seals? Never mind the black seals, he said. Blue, yellow, and red. That's all you need to worry about. And the ground shook as a violent bang pounded through the shipping yard, echoing off the shipping containers and bombarding us from all sides. Section 6, muttered the port manager. Section bloody 6. What's in section bloody 6? I asked, following his gaze to the southeast part of the shipping yard. Never mind what's in section 6, he snapped. Section 6 is off limits, you understand? I nodded because it was true. I understood section 6 was exactly where I needed to go. Was where I needed to go. I don't know. It's one or the other. Okay, and then we want to know what happens next, which is, you know, the mission for tomorrow. So the question now to ask is this a good continuation from the previous chapter? I'll tell you what I'm thinking immediately is I feel as though the previous chapter had more power. I don't know about you guys, but that's what I'm thinking. I feel like this previous chapter there was just something a little bit more powerful about it. And I mean, I understand where the plot is going. You know, if we take this route into chapter 2, we have, you know, the captain of the Yakuza. She calls our guy Sharp, you know, basically to her office, to her restaurant, and says, you know, you're going to work for me, and in return, I'm going to give you what you're in Japan for, right? I'm going to give you your reward. And she says, I want you to help me bring down my sister, kill my sister, who is a rival who's a rival Yakuza captain. So, okay, and now our guy Sharp, he's going to go and have to infiltrate the sisters' organization. He's going to work his way up the ranks, and eventually he'll meet her. There'll probably be a whole big, a big scene. I mean, we did come up with that great scene, actually, for the future. Who was it that helped? Kitty Wistful, right? Kitty Wistful, again, thank you so much. That was a great day. I think it was last week, actually, wasn't it? It was last Friday, where we just came up with this future scene where Sharp meets Mizuki Matsumoto finally. He meets the sister. He also eats a meal with her, just as he ate a meal with Kyori Matsumoto. And, we have this whole thing. Everything seems to be going well. The plan seems to be coming together. Sharp is about to do everything that was asked of him, and then he's going to get his reward. And then Mizuki serves him the main course, which is rabbit, right? And that whole subtext of, we remember the story about the farmer and the tanuki and the rabbit who saved the day. And, Sharp has been acting as the rabbit for Kyori Matsumoto, and Mizuki just goes, she serves him rabbit, cooked rabbit, as if to say, you're not fooling me. I know why you're here. I know who you're working for, and now you're mine, right? And then he's going to get into a world of pain and trouble, probably tortured or something like that. So that's the kind of midpoint of the novel. We sort of know that, and that was great. So again, big shout out to Kitty Wistful for the help there. And all you guys in the chat, right? Please do send in your comments and ideas for where this story might go. Your thoughts, how the plot can be improved. But yeah, I pretty much think that this might just be a bit slow. Doing this whole, let's have our protagonist work his way up through the ranks. I talked about this yesterday. We want to try and eliminate the boring bits. So I'm also not sure if our guy, Mr. Sharp, is if he's more of this James Bondy type of character, which we've discussed. Maybe he is. Then he's not going to he's not going to turn up at the docks as a worker, right? He's not going to be a low man on the totem pole. He's probably going to come to the docks as an international exporter and importer, and he's saying to the port manager, I've got a big shipment coming in, and I want to know it's going to be taken care of. And the port manager, a Yakuza member, he is going to be like, okay, and we want our cut, right? And they start to do this, sort of dirty deal. But obviously the Yakuza wants to spread its wings internationally. Hence, it's very happy that someone like Mr. Sharp, international businessman, is willing to do business with them. And perhaps he's bringing in such valuable cargo that's how he then attracts the attention of Mizuki Matsumoto, the head of the Yakuza, who wants... Remember, the twin sister has just come to power, right? According to this, right? 10 months ago, Mizuki ascended to captain of the Koto ward, and it has been a nightmare ever since. She who controls Koto controls the docks, and already the Yakuza suffered many setbacks due to her lack of sense. Okay, so this sister, she's a bit of a live wire. She's a bit crazy, it seems. And she's in this position of great power as captain of the as one of the captains of the Yakuza, and things have been going wrong. So with this opportunity of an international businessman bringing in a very valuable shipment and doing good business for the Yakuza, then she's going to jump on that. She's going to be like, oh, let me grab this guy and let me show the world, let me show my fellow bosses and my older sister who hates me, that actually I'm a shrewd businesswoman and, I really can do this. And then she wines and dines him, and we have that scene that we talked about before where she serves the rabbit. She figures out, you're not who you say you are. And then she's now threatening. So then Mizuki is threatening Kyori Matsumoto by saying, I'm going to go and tell our superiors that you've tried to start a war, and now you're going to be kicked out of the Yakuza. It's something like that. So that actually seems to make a little bit more sense, right? Again, it's using write the first chapter of your book and then take it as gospel. Just take it as absolute, irrefutable fact. The question is always not what's a better story, but how do I use what I already have to create the best story possible? That's where the creative juices, start flowing. I hope this is making sense, guys. Let me know. Let me know your thoughts. What do you think is better? I think that's probably better. And we can still have this, section 6 business of being this secret section. But yeah, I'm just trying to stay true to the characters. So maybe let's write a few of these ideas down. And over the weekend, okay, no streams on the weekend, as you guys know. But over the weekend, maybe we can all go away. We can think about our stories. And I'm certainly going to think, how can we make this story a little bit better? There's another way that this chapter can go, chapter 2. And that is, so in this way, in the way that it's structured at the moment, we have chapter 1, our guy goes and meets the Yakuza captain on, one night in Tokyo. Let's say it's Tuesday. Then, 2 days later, we have him at the docks, and he begins the process of infiltrating the enemy organization, and it's like that, right? We have big time jumps, and you have that kind of a story. It's a very James Bond kind of story. The other way to do it is the Tarantino or the Jack Reacher type of way of doing it. Well, the Tarantino way would be to jump fast forward. The next scene would probably be could well be just the meeting between so it could go like this. Chapter 2 could be our guy goes back to the hotel, right? So remember, he started at the hotel, he received the package, he went to meet the Yakuza captain. Chapter 2, he goes back to his hotel, he wants to go to sleep, right? He wants to just, okay, I'll deal with all this tomorrow. He wants to go to sleep. And then instead of getting to sleep, there's a knock at his hotel door. He opens it up, and Kyori Matsumoto is standing is standing right there in front of him, and he's like, What the hell's going on? I've just spoken to you. And then it dawns on him, oh, this is not Kyori Matsumoto. This is the twin sister, right? And she says, yeah, I'm the twin sister. I think we need to talk. And it could go like that. And then we get into another one of these powerful conversations, which is, that's a bit more Tarantino-esque, I guess. We stay in the same. We don't have a massive time jump necessarily. The series of events is very condensed. Whether it's only over the course of a day or two, or even a few hours. Think Reservoir Dogs. Might be over. We compress the timeline. And when I added this line yesterday of there's a captain's meeting in 2 weeks. That was our ticking clock, right? That's what we learned from Dan Brown, author of the Da Vinci Code. That's what we learned from him, from his masterclass, when he said, always include a ticking clock in a thriller, because it just it adds to the urgency, right? It creates an extra layer of suspense so simply that, wow, this better be solved in 2 weeks. So as the deadline approaches, the tension is building up. Things are going wrong. Things are going terrible. I only have 3 days left. I only have 2 days left. I only have 1 day left. And then, everything is coming to the boil very quickly. So instead of it being 2 weeks, it could be, there is a captain's meeting in 3 days. There is a captain's meeting tomorrow morning, right? We need to have Kyori. We need to have my sister out of there, in the next 6 hours. And now we have a much more fast-paced story, right? We have a much more compelling ticking clock, right? So my mind is sort of fluctuating between these two things. Usually a shortened timeline is better. This is not an epic Lord of the Rings kind of thing where we're gonna spend 2 years getting to some distant mountain. it's not that story. This is a thriller. This is very, very quick, very fast, and also we want to try and write this in roughly 50 to 60,000 words. We don't have a writing contract here that says we need 100,000 words being written, and therefore we have to fill up the pages with, lots of crap, basically. Start describing hotels. Oh, the lobby was, a amalgamation of antique furniture with red carpets and crystal chandelier. Who cares, right? It's a thriller, right? So we want to write this short and concise, and as Elmore Leonard said, skip all the bad bits because nobody wants to read them anyway. So a compressed timeline would seem to fit the bill. I have on my desk as well the screenplay for The Hateful Eight, which I highly recommend everyone get. This is maybe some people haven't even seen what a screenplay looks like, but this is a screenplay, and it's about, what is this? If anyone hasn't seen the film The Hateful Eight, first buy the screenplay and read it, and then go and watch the film. They're both great, and there's a lot of stuff to learn. This is 165 pages, but again, look at the pages, right? Look at the pages. They're very sparse, right? There's a lot of gaps between the lines because that's the style of a screenplay. But what I'm saying is 165 of these kind of pages is probably about 100 pages when you're writing, like we are in a novel, right? A novel, it's just line by line. There aren't these huge spaces. And that's a whole movie, right? So you really can write a very, very good story very, very quickly, very short and concisely, which is what I want to try and do. What I did with my first book, Hearing Voices, and that really went over well with audiences. So check out this book, guys, too, Hearing Voices. There is read that first line and see if it's see how it works, see how it does everything that we've been talking about with these first lines. Okay, so yeah, that's where I'm thinking. That's basically where I'm at with this novel at the moment, making it up as we go along. I think we have to make Mr. Sharp a bit more of a big player. This is more of a James Bondy kind of thing, and we also need to compress the timeline. Yeah, so if we're using the docks, he's got to be a big player, and if we are not going to use the docks, the shipping port of Koto, the port of Tokyo, then he's got to, Mizuki Matsumoto, the twin sister, has to turn up at his hotel door, in his hotel room very quickly. And in fact, that might be a very, very, that might be an even more powerful scene, because what did we write here? Again, we take everything in this chapter as gospel. We remember that this girl, she took some very indecent pictures of herself and uploaded them to the principal's, computer. So this is obviously a very provocative character, sexually provocative. If she meets Sharp in the bedroom, there is that we can build on that tension, right? We can add that as a part of the conflict in there. He's already said that he senses a kindred spirit in this sister, and so maybe Sharp, already in chapter 2. So we, the audience, think, oh, okay, yeah, we've read chapter 1, we know what the story is going to be. This guy is then going to go and infiltrate the enemy organization. He's going to work his way up, win the trust, and it's that kind of story. We can subvert that entire expectation by saying chapter 2 starts with, him meeting Mizuki Matsumoto, the twin sister, and actually everything gets flipped on its head, right? So there could be something like that. We don't want to be obvious. And I'm willing to take tips, hints. Guys, send me your PMs, your private messages, or your whispers, as we say on Twitch. And send in your own work. What are you guys writing? Tupper Hunter, for instance, what are you writing? Are you an author? Are you a storyteller of some descript? And like Tallulah yesterday, we can go through anyone else's work on this channel. I think about an hour of me writing my story is good enough. It gets one page done, which is the goal. And then the second hour we can, devote to everyone else, and we can try and learn together how to become better writers. Okay, so those are my thoughts for today. Good session. We've got this sort of beginning of chapter 2 potentially down, and it now requires thought. It requires a couple of days, the weekend, to just percolate, and we'll come back on Monday morning, roughly the same time here in London. I don't know what, wherever you guys are tuning in, it's about 7 to 8 a.m. GMT, so midnight if you're in America, or sort of midday, I guess, if you're in Japan. Yeah, so that's it. Okay, I hope you guys have enjoyed this stream. We are at the end of week 3 of this channel, so things are progressing. Please do follow this channel. We want to try and get up to 50 followers as quickly as possible, so then we have more we can add more features from the Twitch platform. If you've missed chapter 1 and those beginning videos, those first videos, because they do get deleted from Twitch until I've got 50 followers, then you can get them on YouTube. You can get them on YouTube. Go to the right before your eyes YouTube channel, and I think the first 3 or 4 videos, full complete Twitch streams, are on there unedited, and you can see how we built up chapter 1, which I do think is fairly strong as a chapter. You can see how that's all been done. So please do give that a view. Like, subscribe, follow on Twitch, tell your friends, join the community, tell us what you're writing about, keep writing yourself, and join me on Monday where I will continue to write